morning. It looks like today is the big day. And no, we're not going to be planting. We had some thunderstorms last night. It was in the middle of the night, and I would have not known at all, except for the fact that my dogs seem to be terrified of those storms. Subsequently, they try to crawl into our skin when they happen, so it's hard not to miss them. I know many of you have been following on this because you like to keep an eye on the weather and you know where I'm located at. Today is our big tornado day. The forecasts are showing an extremely high probability, 25 to 30% for tornadoes in our area. And when I say our area, it's actually a pretty expansive region, almost the entire western side of Illinois into Iowa, Missouri, and even some pockets down south. I'm not going to pretend to be a weather expert. It has something to do with the way the fronts are moving through, possibly some jet streams and wind. I really don't know. And I'm sure whatever I just said probably just proved that I'm a non-expert. Anyways, very high probability of severe storms, maybe some supercells and major tornadoes in the area. So we're going to keep our eye on things as they develop. Hopefully it's an unexciting night, but you never know what Mother Nature holds. Yesterday afternoon, all this ground was starting to gray off on top. Today it's nice and damp again. If we get a big rain tonight, easily going to be pushing our starting date for plant 2023 into mid-April. In my humble opinion, the only barometer you need to keep an eye on to tell whether or not you should be concerned is if the storm chasers are heading to your area to look for tornadoes. And this afternoon into this evening, they're all going to be here in central Illinois, albeit probably a little bit more to the northwest, like Peoria, even closer to the Quad Cities, which is a ways away, technically speaking. All things the same, I think that we are brewing up something tonight that someone, somewhere, is not going to enjoy. Other than the chance of storms tonight, it's actually going to be fairly windy today, 30, 40, maybe even 50-mile-an-hour winds, so probably not going to do anything terribly productive. Just wanted to stop by the machine shed, wish all of our nice John Deere equipment good luck. I want to give a special shout out to this chain and boomer strap, because if a tornado does roll through here, it's going to have its work cut out for it. I would speculate that the doors wouldn't go far. I would imagine, though, if the winds are violent enough, it would just rip those hooks off the door and take the door wherever it wanted, along with probably the entirety of this machine shed. And I'm sure most of this equipment would be totaled. Especially the two most important things in here right now are planters. If you think about it from a statistical standpoint, the actual true likelihood of something very major occurring here is so slim that it's not even worth considering. The problem is that the human brain has this little area that is so prone to sensationalism and practically feeds off of it that you really start thinking about all of the bad things that could happen if you had a storm roll through here, because we've seen it time and time again. We've seen it happen in our own county where tornadoes have gone through, and we see it all the time on social media. That little sensationalistic part of your brain is also the reason that journalism and social media is so toxic, but that's a conversation for a different day. Don't go too far. We're going to need you here another couple weeks. It's about mid-afternoon right now. Nothing major to report so far. We had a little small cell move through that had some quarter-inch hail in it, but not a ton of lightning, thunder, or strong winds. For the most part, it's been relatively calm down here in south central Illinois. I have been following on social media, and there has been some tornadic activity in the Quad Cities area and into Peoria. The strongest chance of very severe tornadoes is from 5 to 9. It's just 3:30 right now, so I guess the worst is yet to come. I'll keep you guys posted.
If we can take a look at what we're seeing with our velocity right now, yeah, it looks like pretty much this is where we're looking at this tornado to kind of be. This area of red that is sitting inside this green, pretty much it looks like it's right over the Taylorville area. And this is going to be impacting not only Christian County, but eventually moving its way over into Shelby County, Macon counties, and that is in effect until 7:30.
It took an entire afternoon and evening of waiting, but our turn on the table is up. A lot of storms went across Iowa, northwestern Illinois, and are still continuing to do so. Some major devastation through that area, and some honestly impressive tornadoes formed. You just got to appreciate the power of Mother Nature. This storm system has constantly been sending cells to the northeast. We are looking at the straight west area now, so they'd be cutting across this way. Like I said earlier, we only had one little storm roll through with no major incidents to report. It definitely seems like it's picking up speed now, and based on the radar, we're going to have our shot at a tornado here pretty soon. There's one about 30 miles to the northwest. Like I said, with the trajectory of the storms in this system, should not be an issue for us because it's going to keep heading northeast. Prayers for everyone up that way. And our cell is down there to the southwest somewhere. I've been keeping an eye on the radar. Here's our current radar. I don't believe that it shows any kind of warnings when it goes into the future track. So there is a strong possibility that this storm right here heading across Vandalia will catch us here in Mattoon. I'm out at my mom and dad's house right now with the dogs and Allie and Lenny, just because they have a basement and a much stronger house than we do. That, and you get to sit here and watch the storms roll across. Regardless of how violent they are, it is still somewhat entertaining to see. If any of these storms are going to give us trouble, it's this one that's approaching right now. This radar has a future track on it. This is the current timeline on our storm. Might be building as it comes across. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what Mother Nature has in store. It's been another 15 or 20 minutes. Doesn't look like we're going to get to witness anything in the daytime like some of those big Iowa tornado chasers saw. The radar is looking a little bit more friendly than it was up in northwestern Illinois. I'm not saying there isn't a possibility for this to develop into something severe. It just looks like, for the most part, the likelihood of us getting shebanged by a tornado is pretty slim, which I'm happy to report that. The crazy thing is that this storm is getting fairly close. It's within 20 miles, and I've not seen a single bit of lightning or heard any thunder. The only thing that is obvious is that I should probably take my hat off and put it inside, because one of these gusts is going to take this thing clean off and I may never see it again. Here's a little updated radar as we go a little bit further into the night. Keeping an eye on that same cell. Doesn't really seem to be strengthening too quickly. If it gets through here before it builds up too much, we definitely won't have to worry about it developing into a ultra severe storm. I just saw my first violent lightning strike of the evening. It was off to the west. We are starting to get a little bit of misting. It's getting close to pitch black out here, other than a little bit of remaining ambient light. Keep in mind that my camera has the ability to overcrank the exposure and create an artificial illumination. It comes at a cost of quality, but it allows you to see things that the naked eye can't currently see. The wind is starting to die down, which is kind of concerning, seeing as it was about 40 or 50 mile an hour gusts, and now we're down to 15 or 20 mile an hour. Could this be the calm before the storm? It looks like, for the most part, this may actually skirt by to the north of us. Whether or not that's a good thing, we'll find out here in the next 30 minutes. Currently a tornado on the ground. It's been on the ground north of Champaign, east of Rantoul, going through Hoopston. That is supposedly a pretty major one.
Just the pictures we have shown, even if you don't believe a single word I say, just the pictures that we showed you would have you running. And again, if you are in a mobile home, get out. If you think I'm scaring you, exactly I am. Get out now. Get to a friend's or relatives. You don't want to mess around with this.
That shouldn't be laughing. There still doesn't really appear to be a whole lot going on. I texted a friend who's 15 miles to the west that should be in the heart of this little cell right now that's approaching us, and he said it's barely even rained there, so this one may not do anything. I'm going to stand here until I feel unsafe, and then I'm going to get inside behind the glass until I feel unsafe there. And once you feel unsafe behind the glass, it's probably time to go to the basement, if you got one of those. If not, find a bathtub in the center of your house. I thought I was looking at a tornado. It's just a tree in front of us. Needless to say, the anxiety is cranked up a little bit right now. For the most part, it looks like this storm is kind of coiling around our location here south of Mattoon, hitting the northern area a little bit harder. One thing we're going to have to keep an eye on, though, is this storm down here in Salem, south of Vandalia, that's approaching Effingham, could very easily push north a little bit heavier, and next thing you know, we got a tornado sitting in our laps from the south, not to mention the cells coming from the west. So we've got to be very vigilant. Some severe weather across Iowa, Illinois, Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe even moving into Indiana.
Yeah. So again, this was until 9 o'clock, and I'm like, why? It's going to be clearly gone by 9. So now you have your new warning until 8:45, which sounds a little ridiculous.
This guy's kind of a diva.
It is what it is. So we'll keep tabs on this one here to see if there's any more development farther to the south. But it almost looks like it wants to go a little bit farther to the north. But yeah, we'll definitely see. And what's the foot? I mean, that looks like it's moving fast, Phil.
The next one is almost here. I just got an alert on my phone for heavy winds. This is our probable last opportunity for anything strong. And like I said, we're optimistic that it's going to turn out to be a non-event. But the lightning has certainly picked up compared to earlier. The first cell that went by was a non-event. Got multiple tornadoes to the south, to the north, although none of them were really that close to our area. Say it's here. About half mile away, coming across the field.
Haven't got those lights yet.
The wind's blowing substantially. It sounds like there's a little bit of rain and thunder. Other than that, though, this is kind of underwhelming. Is it done? Storm is pretty much out of the area. We did not have any damage to speak of, fortunately. And looks like there's less than 3/10 of an inch of rain in the gauge, which certifies this as a non-event. It also increases the possibility that we may be able to plant next week if we miss a few more showers and of course have some warm, drying weather. It's been a few days and one could certainly say that the dust has settled on Friday night's storm system. I don't want to downplay the event by any means. Here in Mattoon, it was pretty much a non-event. We had 3/10 of an inch of rainfall total. That may add up to another day or two of drying before we could think about getting to the fields. Really not a big deal for us. Like I said though, there were areas where it was actually pretty significant. Northeastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois had a pretty big batch of major tornadoes. Gonna give our condolences to anyone who's lost anything out there. Keep them in our thoughts and our prayers, because we certainly would not want to deal with that, especially in the spring. There were a handful of tornadoes spotted in central Illinois, as well as a couple that touched down, namely one in Rantoul, which is about 45 to 50 miles north of Mattoon, and then one touchdown in Robinson, about 40 or 45 miles south of Mattoon. So we were right in the middle of those two, and they ended up doing a significant amount of damage, not only because they were fairly sized and strong, but more specifically because they were long track tornadoes. A few of those were on the ground for a long time. They went through areas that weren't necessarily highly populated, which is always a blessing, though a tornado does not have to hit very many locations to do a large amount of financial damage. Again, we want to send our best wishes to all those people who suffered any kind of damage. If you are a farmer or know of a farmer who was significantly impacted, I highly recommend you check out Farm Rescue. Farm Rescue is around just to lend a helping hand with no strings attached to farmers who suffer major catastrophes, whether it be natural disasters like tornadoes, windstorms, or maybe even health issues. Anything under the sun you can think of, they will come in with at the bare minimum volunteers to run your equipment, or they can even orchestrate bringing their own equipment or leasing other equipment. Again, no strings attached, so if you suffered any major damage and you think you could use some help this spring, do not hesitate to reach out. They are willing, ready, and certainly qualified to do a good job helping you out on your farm. With all of that bad news out of the way, I can happily say that today is lining up, based on the forecast, to be the nicest day of this spring so far. And the best part is that tomorrow's even better. Here's the 10-day forecast. Today, a high of 72, mostly sunny, chance of storms in the evening. Tomorrow, they're calling for another day like Friday, where the weather is conducive to some major supercells forming. Again, it doesn't look like they're going to be focused in our area. More specifically, that northeastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois region is looking at some pretty major tornadoes again. I'm optimistic that everyone will skirt by unharmed, but you never know what Mother Nature has in store. If by chance we miss a majority of these storms, and more specifically rainfalls, we are looking primed and ready to plant. The ground is already starting to gray off a little bit. These next 2 days, 3 days will actually dry it off pretty much the rest of the way. And if everything continues the way it's headed, and I stop getting notifications on Instagram, oh my gosh, we will be farming by probably this weekend, which also happens to be Easter. It would be a good early start for us though, so I'm hopeful that we'll be in the fields. In my adventures of trying to forecast and track the storms on Friday evening, I came across a source of information I did not realize. There is a tremendous amount of fantastic weather and storm channels on YouTube. I could start naming them off now and probably still be talking in 10 minutes, but you get the gist. If you're ever concerned about the weather, there's a lot of fantastic people out there who provide very reasonable and good explanations of what's going on in the area. These people play a tremendous part in helping improve safety and survivability of these storms. 100 years ago, a tornado could roll through and no one would know it was coming. Nowadays, we have the privilege of technology, social media, and very easy communication, so we can be prepared for storms that are on the horizon. Just like they shared all the information on Friday that there's a chance of major tornadoes, I'm sure that they prevented many people from dying because they had their eyes on the sky and their ears on their weather radios. With all that being said and the probability of poor weather behind us, we're actually going to try and do something productive today. It does look like some of our fields going into corn that are currently soybean stubble are starting to get quite a few winter annuals popping up right there. These are weeds, mainly henbit and chickweed, that like to grow in cooler conditions in the late fall or early spring. We do not have any residual herbicides down like atrazine or simazine or even Dole to keep those weeds back. So as it continues to warm up and stay moist, they will present an issue with tillage. We will either have to consider a burn down application of herbicide, whether that be a Callisto, Roundup, Gramoxone, or just hope that our field cultivators can chop through that. We do run a traditional field cultivator, or digger, as some of you Western farmers would call it, so it does not have disc gangs on the front. Disc gangs really help size that stuff up and allow it to flow through the field cultivator tines. If this henbit gets too thick out there, our field cultivators could start to plug up and not be able to process that topsoil with the weeds in it. We'll play it by ear. Like I said, worst case scenario, we either apply a burn down or we run that vertical till because it will chop that up a little bit. I know some of you are probably curious what happened to the stray dog that showed up here at the farm. My wife and I took it under our wing for a couple of days and decided that 3 dogs in our small house was just a little bit too much, so we brought it back here to live with my sister Katie. I know Katie has tried many different routes to voice that we have a dog and think that it's someone's, but no one has stood up and volunteered that it's theirs, so it may just be a part of the family now. Hello, dog. Oh, 2 dogs. There's the old pup Chassis and new pup. I don't know new pup's name. I just call it Dog. Wow! Always gotta come say hi to the pup. Whoa! This one's crazy. This one's crazy. You can't be trusted by the semi-truck. Stay back. Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy, dog. I can't believe someone would abandon you. I mean, I could, but I couldn't. You're so cute. What'd they name you? Are you just gonna be called Dog? We won't forget about you, pup. Wow! You tell him. You would never do such a thing, would you, Chaz? Looks like Jeff's gonna haul some grain today. I think that this pup may be a border collie, possibly crossed with a beagle, based on the way it howls and barks and sniffs everything. Chassis here is a lab mixed with a beagle. She's getting kind of old. I've probably said that already. You can tell a beagle when you see one. They've got some very interesting traits. The dog and I are a lot alike. That's how I feel about work too. Don't necessarily want to do it. Jeff needs some fuel. Alrighty, that's enough lollygagging. I've got one job on my list to do today that I've been dragging my feet on, but I gotta strike while the iron's hot. Literally. Need to wax the 2 remaining 4-wheel drive tractors. Waxing your equipment is far from necessary, though it does kind of help with their long-term looks. These are 2 of our older 4-wheel drives, so might as well pull it out while we still have time and we're not busy planning and get it done for the spring. I had mentioned in a previous video that I was planning on parking the Hagee in this old shed here. Someone mentioned that they did not think that the Hagee would fit if the 9620R would fit, which is pretty solid logic. I did some Googling on the dimensions of the equipment. According to my research, the Hagee is the same height as these 9460Rs, and they seem to make it in here just fine. How did you get in here? How did you find me? You are a farm dog, aren't you? Long story short, I guess I'll just have to cross that bridge when it comes, because if we can't fit the Hagee in here, we are really going to be in dire straits when it comes to storage, because the other shed's going to be stuffed full here pretty soon. It appears that the 7330 was my dad's choice of anchoring tractor for these doors for the storms last week. And I have to get that off so I can get the doors open. not sure how much help she can be. This is the dog. Whoa, look at that magic trick. Didn't know that was there. You can at least help push. Will you go back to the house so I don't run you over? You're not farm trained. I know that you won't stay out of my way. Gotta love the smell of diesel exhaust in the morning. This is what we're talking about. It's not a place for you, dog. Stay back. Stay over there. I'm gonna move this. To work on this, dog. I'm the only slow one here. The other people will run you over. Okay, dog, we've got one more to do. Speaking of extras, that tire right there is for the DB60 planter as a spare on the main running wheels. Does anyone want to venture to guess how much that tire and rim cost together? Drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think. I can guarantee you, unless you've bought one yourself, you're going to be way too low. This tractor clean and it's filthy already. Well, filthy's a little bit of an overstatement. It's dirty. I may have to wipe it off before I wax it. Now you're in trouble, pup. The boss is here. Wow, that was quick. Jeff's already loaded and gone to the elevator. Hopefully he slows down a little bit because I don't really want to sweep out that bin today. A lot of unstrapping this morning. I just need to run over here to get two things out of the shed. First of which is this ladder to help make waxing those tractors easier. And then in my planer tractor cab, I've got a fresh thing of turtle wax, which should be of great aid for waxing these other two tractors. With ground conditions flirting with dry in the next couple days, probably be thinking about getting the field cultivators out, and at a bare minimum getting them outside of the shed. I don't know if we'll actually set them up for the season or not. I will say that it's easier to get tillage done in the snap of a finger if you get them out of the barn beforehand. They should be ready to go, other than the new one possibly needing some calibrations done and some alignment because it may not be set up exactly how it needs to be. One qualified person can have these plugged in and set up ready to go, but you really need two people at a minimum to get these out of the shed because you don't want to risk tearing some of your support beams off the walls. Either way, that'll probably be a tomorrow project. I was concerned about having the proper GPS offsets and mechanical shutoff timings for this tractor. I didn't realize that the screens came pre-populated with the factory settings. All of our other planners were not that way. We kind of had to adjust the settings on our own. I also gathered a few variations of the settings from a few people on social media, as well as our GPS expert here at Alliance Tractor and Matt Toon. They all seem fairly similar to what the tractor already had in it. We'll probably just have to verify those numbers when we hit the field. It's very important to have these numbers correct because it determines the timing of the row shutoffs when you cross an area that's already been planted. If you have your timings too fast or too slow, or your offsets set to the wrong dimension, you can end up with some fairly large gaps out there. A tiny gap, 6 inches or so, is not really that big of a deal across the field because it'll fill in very quickly. If you leave 2 or 3 foot, you're going to be kicking yourself all spring and summer looking at that if you don't have to just go out and replant it all in the first place. In what seems like the blink of an eye, we have 2 tractors with a fresh coat of wax drying on them right now. Just kidding. It actually took a long time to do that, but it should look pretty good once it's done. And with the sun shining and the temperature picking up, it ought to be pretty quick and we'll be taking it back off. I can't pretend I did all of the work. I just held the ladder. The dog did all of the waxing. Would you just look at that fresh wax shine? Dad showed up. We took the coat off this first tractor and greased its undercarriage. So it's pretty much ready to go for the season, other than maybe me cleaning the windows after dinner today because they're kind of dirty. I've been recruited for a side project while we wait on the far side of that tractor to dry. Usually the wax that's not directly in the sunlight takes a little bit longer to dry, sometimes a lot longer, depending on the day. I think Dad's still wanting to do a little bit of repair work on that culvert over by his house. The issue is that the optimal hoe bucket is the smooth edge wide ditching bucket for something like that, and we're having a hard time getting this other tooth bucket off. It's just that we haven't changed buckets in a while, and things tend to get a little bit hung up on this when they don't get switched out frequently. Oh boy, Chris and Jeff are getting the bin door off. Time to sweep another one out. Project update. Not to my surprise, we were just going to go ahead and use this bucket because we can't get it off. It's just kind of a desperation choice. Basically, if you look right there where the bucket pins in, I hold two buttons and those pins come in, and it's supposed to free the bucket. The issue is that it's not going in far enough to let the bucket loose. This is a problem we've had in the past. Like I said earlier, I would imagine it's just an issue of the bucket being left on for too long without getting cycled off. And because of it, it's just not wanting to break free. Well, son of a gun! If you shake it violently enough, it'll come off. Took me 3 months of work, but I finally got it done. We've got the ditching bucket. I'm being completely serious when I say 3 months because I came over here a few months ago trying to make the same transition, and I sat here and shook the bucket for probably 30 to 40 minutes, and I did not make any progress. Somehow, whether it be the warm weather or just pure luck, we got it off today. Looks like my dad may have completely given up and just used the loader bucket. Okay, well, him doing that with the loader makes everything I just did a complete waste of time. But sometimes it's like that.
What's that over there?
Is it a hunk of something? I did pull 2 ditching buckets out of the bottom of this. We have water flowing. We're kind of evaluating where we're at right now because we're not even entirely sure in this mess where the culvert is. Seems to be right there, just not entirely sure. I'm also trying to put that mud into the loader bucket, which is easier said than done. When I look at it from this angle, it almost looks like the water's coming from over there. Maybe that's the culvert we pulled out? I really don't know. It's really making more questions than answers at this point. So did we pull the culvert back? We could have grabbed it with the hoe bucket. I think that's aluminum or steel? Almost need to tie a chain. Well, you don't really want to dislodge it. Oh!
You don't have it. Where's it up? Go that way a little. Now down. Now push. Oh!
Don't worry, I've got my safety glasses on too. Not that I should really be concerned when I'm this far away from the action. Looks like we got the majority of the culvert cut off. I was about to film the process and then I accidentally dropped my camera out of the back of the backhoe and smoked my lens, so it's not feeling too hot right now. The zoom and the focus knob aren't working too well. Other than that, though, it doesn't look like the quality was affected. Or at least not enough that I'm noticing it from the camera. Cost of doing business, sometimes things get hurt. That project bought us just enough time to get this tractor dry. All the wax is off now. I'm gonna back it into the shed, and then I'm gonna clean the windows in both of them. Seems like there's a bunch of small greasy fingertips all over the windows in all of our tractors. I wonder why that could be. I still got my shadow following me around here. Back up, dog, I'm moving. At first, we just had 2 freshly waxed tractors, but now we have waxed and clean window tractors. They look okay. My window cleaning job is never the best. I will say that cleaning the windows on a tractor has to be one of the most frustrating tasks on the farm. It seems like no matter what you do, you always leave streaks behind. Now, if I look at it from the right angle, they look spotless. If you got up there and actually looked with the correct cross lighting, you'd realize that they don't look as good as I'd like you to think they look. As a matter of fact, they could look much better than they do right now. I'm just gonna call that good enough, especially because I don't even run these 2 tractors in the spring. The only tractor I need shiny windows on is my 8R370 that I plant beans with, because you're always gonna take care of your machine more than the others. See you later, tractors. Rest up. If we miss a few rains, you guys will be playing in the dirt soon. Today has been one of the first days of this year where I've legitimately started sweating from the temperature while I work, which is a pretty darn good sign for the drying going on outside. My curiosity always gets the best of me when I run down to one of our fields that I would consider the quickest drying, do a little shovel test and see what the ground looks like. I'm willing to put my money on dry on top, complete mud underneath. To be honest, I hope that's the case because I don't have all my ducks in a row yet. My tanker is not fully plumbed yet, though it's almost done, and my sprayer isn't even set up or been through the shop yet. So those 2 things right there are pretty big ticket items for me, considering I need to be able to apply herbicides around planting time. You really couldn't ask for much better drying weather than this at the beginning of April. 75 degrees right now and a nice breeze. The breeze is obviously not that convenient for filming, but it is excellent at pulling moisture away from our ground. I'm walking out in a field about a half mile to the southwest of our main farm. This is corn stalk, so it will be a little bit more on the wet side compared to soybean stubble. The one thing this does have going for it is that it is a lighter soil with a sandier or gravelly subsoil that seems to drain very well. So if anything's going to plant, it's usually this one. Definitely a little bit wet underneath, like I said. I bet that's drying quick though. Once you pull it out, you just grab it, see if it makes balls. Sandier soils usually just fall apart. Clays, which there's a lot of clay out here on top, kind of makes small balls. There is actually a legitimate metric to gauge the saturation of the soil type. If you know what soil you're dealing with, you can see how big of a ball will roll up. If the ball is above a certain amount, depending on the soil type, you know it's probably too wet. And if it's just a soup when you put your hand in it, you know it's definitely too wet. I would say for this type of soil, being able to make an 1.5 inch ball means that we're farther out than it appears right now. This weather though, will definitely dry this in a hurry. I'm gonna hop directly across the road real quick to a similar farm, but soybean stubble, to see if there's any difference. It does fall apart a little bit. You get too deep in there though, like this is probably 3 or 4 inches in the ground, you got a lot of moisture. It's deeper down in the ground from 2 to 10 inches where you pack down all of this soil that is way too wet. You cause compaction. Corn or soybean roots struggle to get adequate depth, especially if it turns off dry. That can really bite you in the rear end. I know it does seem a little bit on the wet side still. It does not take very many days of weather like this to really expedite this drying process. We've got a high tomorrow in the 80s, which will dry us even more than today did. And some of this soil is actually relatively forgiving to wet tillage. This farm probably wouldn't mind if we came in here and broke it up, and I would bet that it would probably powder up pretty good tomorrow. Whoa, 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 hold your horses. Don't go getting your hopes up. You gotta be careful doing that on a farm. You never know what tomorrow holds. Alrighty folks, I think I'm gonna go home for the rest of the evening and enjoy this nice warm weather with my family. If not playing, maybe we can actually fix my horrific yard. That's always a nice thing to do in the spring. Again, I'm very grateful that we did not have any severe storms here in this area. My condolences go out to anyone who suffered any kind of issues. Like I said earlier in the video, make sure you check out Farm Rescue if you or someone you know has taken a major hit from one of these natural disasters. I'll let you guys know if anything unfolds tomorrow evening when they're calling for the next major round of tornadoes to come through. it's looking less probable for us than Friday night's storm system did. So probably going to be okay on that. Let's hope we miss the rain. Let's hope that my sprayer gets done soon, because we are probably going to be farming before too long. As always, I greatly appreciate every one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!